Hi, welcome to another episode of Detroit Investor TV. My name is Jeremy Burgess, the Detroit market expert from Urban Detroit Wholesalers. And this is the start of a series on why Detroit, why investing in Detroit. However, I think the better question is, why shouldn't you be investing in Detroit? Why not? A lot of things have happened in the last 40 years, and it's obvious that the biggest part is the decline in manufacturing through what we call the Rust Belt states, which is obviously Michigan included, primarily Detroit. It couldn't go on forever. As the world continues to industrialize and international competition increases, it never was in the cards that we would remain the powerhouse, the industrial powerhouse of the world, and we would retain all that market share in car manufacturing. The writing was on the wall a long time ago. Admittedly, GM, Ford, and Chrysler were a little slow to act, but we're never going to have that kind of market share again. That doesn't mean we're not going to have manufacturing. There's still going to be car manufacturing in Detroit 150 years from now. It's still going to be here. It's just not going to have the kind of market share that we had before. But we all know that sad story of manufacturing loss through Detroit and Michigan and the Rust Belt states. But what a lot of people don't realize is that car manufacturing is not the only important thing about Detroit. Because the question I get all the time is, well, is Detroit just going to disappear? And of course Detroit's not just going to disappear, because Detroit is more than just car manufacturing. A lot of people don't realize, but Detroit is right across the river from Windsor, Canada. And the Detroit-Windsor trade corridor is actually the busiest trade corridor in the world, to the tune of $1 billion a day in trade back and forth between America, Canada, and our deep sea port. That's right, Detroit actually has a deep sea port. We get big cargo container ships, just like cities like Los Angeles and Seattle and other important trading cities. We have some of the best rail lines in the world, and plenty of land to expand. So, and we're also 5 years into a 25-year plan for the world's largest airport. It's called Aerotropolis, and it's a part of a report that I email you, but you could also Google it if for some reason you're not already on my list. And Aerotropolis is going to be the world's largest airport, and not just compete regionally with Chicago, but also internationally with the likes of Dubai Airport, which is an enormous airport that focuses on trade. So the future of Detroit is more than just car manufacturing. We are a trade hub. Fully 25% of all trade in North America crosses Detroit. And when you think about that number, you realize how important Detroit is, not just nationally, but internationally. So the idea that Detroit is just going to go away is obviously a false idea. It is not going to happen. And trade is actually becoming more and more important. That number goes up all the time. Right now, they need to build another bridge. We have a bridge and a tunnel, and right now we're at max capacity, and we need another bridge for the increased trade that is going to happen over the next 10 years. And obviously, with the Wayne County government and the state of Michigan behind the Aerotropolis plan, that trading component is only going to become more important, because there's one thing that we can say about the global economy. What hurt car manufacturers was that increase in international competition and those cheaper labor pools and cheaper everything else. But in another sense, it actually helps us, even though it hurt us temporarily, because world trade is here. It's not going away. It's gonna be here forever. It's only gonna take an increased part of our economy, not just locally, but nationally and internationally. So my question is, why not Detroit? Now that you know that Detroit is not going away, and you realize how important Detroit is locally, nationally, and internationally to the trading economy, now you just have to look at what's really happening in Detroit. And I've been investing in Detroit for almost 6 years now, and a lot of what you hear on the news is true. You hear a lot of the bad things, and I'm going to be first to tell you that a lot of it is true. First off, Detroit is an enormous city. It's 140 square miles. And to give you an idea of how big that really is, you can fit 4 of any other major city in America into the city limits of the city of Detroit. Just downtown, what would you consider the city of Detroit? I'm not even including the suburbs. It's an enormous city. So all those stories you hear about bad things happening in Detroit are true. And I'm sure you hear about bad things happening in your city. Detroit's not unlike any other major city in the world. There are good areas and there are bad areas. It just so happens that the major difference about Detroit over other cities is our bad areas are bigger because we are a much bigger city. Which is why it's so important that while considering investing in Detroit and knowing what's really going on, that you know that there are good areas and there are bad areas, just like where you're currently living or just like a big city near you. And it's really important that you stay in the good areas. This is going to be a series I'm going to run. I want to try and keep it within 5-6 minutes. So this is Why Not Detroit. I'm going to cover some more stuff in the next episode of Detroit Investor TV coming out this Thursday for you. And this is Series 1, video number 1 in Why Not Detroit? Why not invest in Detroit? Once again, this is Jeremy Burgess of Urban Detroit Wholesalers, a Detroit market expert. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow the link below and sign up for my blog. And you will also be emailed a list of all the important things that have happened in Detroit and why Detroit is already on the comeback. It's easy to find a lot of bad news about Detroit, but for some reason the good news seems to slip between the cracks. And I have a nice collection of all the good things happening. So kind of like a detective, when you're trying to solve a case, same thing with Detroit. Is it all just bad or is it all good? There's a lot of good things that have happened here the last 6 years. So I will catch you on the next episode of Detroit Investor TV on Why Not Invest in Detroit. Thanks.